Ani. So today, as you can tell from the title, we're going to be doing a long-awaited video, something I've been asked to do time and time again. One of the things I even promised to do a few years ago in my fan making video, and I just never got to it, which is making a plume side drop, as well as learning how to do thread work. Now, one of the reasons that I took so long getting to this, well, besides busyness and life, is I am not exactly an expert at doing thread work or making plume side drops. I've made a plume side drop for myself, and I've done thread work a few times, but I also just figured it out, and I don't know if what I do is the standard practice for everybody else. So with that being said, that's just a disclaimer to let you know that the instructions in this video might not be standard, and if anybody has any tips to share in the comments, please do so. And one more thing before we get started, since there are two subjects in this video, one being a side drop and two being the thread work, I'm going to go ahead and link in the description below what time the thread work instruction begins, just in case you're only clicking on this video to learn how to do thread work and you're not interested in the side drop. So with all that being said, let's get started. So just for reference, this is my side drop plume. It's a real eagle plume, and here is the thread work that I have. Yeah, we're going to be making something that kind of looks like this today. And the very first material that I'm showing you are some plumes. These are not real plumes. I don't have any other real plumes. I'm also using these dowels that I got out of a craft section. You can use wooden skewers for like kebab that you find in like the kitchen section. And here are all the Notion items that I'm using. We have some tacky glue, a little strip of leather, some masking tape, sinew, and I have here some Glover needles. You don't have to have Glover needles. I just like them for working with leather because they sew leather better than regular needles do. Now, as for types of thread, people use different kinds of threads, of course. What I used in my personal plume that I showed you is this ultra thin like nylon type thread. It is shiny, holographic. It took quite a while to cover space on the dowel with this thing, but I didn't mind because I really liked the look. And then something that I suggest is to use a embroidery thread. This thread is certainly thicker than regular like sewing thread. So this is what I suggest in using for your plumes. What you are going to see me use in this video, however, is this thick hemp cord. Using a thicker cord is definitely an option if you like that. I'm going to be using a thicker cord in this video just to make it easier for you to see what I'm doing. So I just want to note that the fluffiness of your side drop definitely depends on how many plumes you have, how fluffy they are. Here I have two, and they're not super fluffy, but the quality of them is definitely different than the fake ones that I'm going to be working with today. The fluffiness definitely spans all around the quill, whereas the fluffiness is only on like the left and right of this quill. But yeah, people use varying amounts of plumes in their side drops. There isn't a right or wrong answer for it. It's just how fluffy do you want it. With that being said, I am using 4 artificial plumes today. So the next part is how long do we want the dowel portion of the side drop to be? Obviously we don't want this entire thing. So this part is kind of up to you. Do you want it to be like super long? Do you want it to be sort of in the middle, really short? This depends, I guess, on how long your plumes are. Where on your head are you going to be placing the side drop? Are you going to be placing it more towards the middle so you need it longer to keep the plumes off the top of your head? Or do you want it shorter? I think I'm probably going to make this one about this long, which is, let's see, it's a little under 2 inches. Then after you make that mark, you can use whatever method you have for chopping the dowel. I like to just kind of carve around the entire surface of it and then just kind of make my way towards the middle until it wants to snap apart. Now I want to cut out the piece of leather, and if you can, I don't know if you can tell, this piece of leather here actually goes all the way up to the top and the threadwork is over the leather. So what we need to do is cut out the length of this, or measure it out, not only twice, but we also need to add a little extra so that there's enough to form a loop here. This loop is about a 1/2 inch long, so being that there's a 1/2 inch on the front and a 1/2 inch on the back, I need to add about 1 inch. You don't have to measure, oh, I put that in the wrong spot. You don't have to measure exactly like I am, it's just measuring just helps me with my brain. Now as for the width of this leather, it looks to be a little over 1/4 inch wide. I'm not going to measure that super perfect, I'm just going to, I'd really like the edge to be rather straight, so I'm going to use this ruler to help me out. Okay, I'm just double checking my work here, and it is indeed long enough to cover both sides of the dowel and have a little extra left over. Now that we have the leather prepared, I'm actually going to set it on the side for now, and it's time to attach the feathers to the dowel. This is when I'm going to bust out ye old tacky glue. You don't have to use tacky glue, you can use other glues like super glue. I like tacky glue though because if I want to sort of move around the feather or change where I place it, I'm able to do that. With super glue, where you put the feather is most likely where it's going to stay.
Hi, Editing Chelsea here. I should have mentioned that it goes either way. I choose the tacky glue because I want to be able to sort of move the feather around if I don't immediately place it in the correct spot. But if you want to have that feather absolutely stick in the spot as you place it on, and you don't have to like hold it there for a while to let it stick, then I would suggest the super glue. It's a preference thing. Do you?
Anyways, so now applying these feathers to the dowel, being that there's multiple of them, I don't want to, again, I don't know if this is standard, this is just my personal opinion, I don't want to put 2 quills or more against each other and then apply them to the dowel. I want each quill to be attached to the dowel, to be touching the dowel. So being that there's 4 feathers, I'm going to attach, you know, one on, let's say the top, right? And then the second one I will attach to the bottom. And then the 3rd feather on the left and the 4th on the right, so that there's basically a quill touching each of the 4 sides of this dowel. Also, something that I want to know, I don't know if all plumes are like this. I know these ones are, and the ones that I had were also like this, but the quill at the bottom of the feather is not, it's not bare or like just quill. The plumage goes all the way down to the end of the quill. So I guess this one, some of the plume did come off, but here's another example. So some of this plume you're going to have to not have on the outside. It'll have to be stuck on the dowel and wrapped over. By the way, I'm so sorry if you can hear my heater going. Basement studio. Anyways, I'm going to grab my glue and start gluing them to the dowel. Now it's a little hard to see because it's a rather sensitive time. But I have all 4 plume quills stuck to the dowel, and I'm holding them to the dowel because if I don't hold them, they're just going to fall off. The tacky glue isn't dry yet, so it's not going to hold them in place just yet. What we want to do to hold them in place is make use of the masking tape. I'm just going to let this go. Oh, it's kind of sticking. I decided while I let that dry a little bit longer, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with the masking tape with this dowel just to make it easier, more visible. But this is basically what I'm going to be doing with this. Hi, it's me from the future because I didn't like the footage that I originally did. So here I have the tape and a dowel, and what I want to do is apply the tape straight onto the dowel. Like so. Actually, that's kind of at an angle. I want to get it straight. Voila. And then I'm wrapping the tape around the dowel until I get it as thick as I want it to be. All right, see how that like thickened up the dowel? Next, I'm taking another strip of tape and I'm laying it right next to the previous tape. Smooth out the tail, basically, that I left. And then I'm going to just wrap this around, making sure that the tape is staying right next to the previous tape. And I'm going to wrap this around until until this is the same thickness as the previous tape. I think that's about right there. I have a little too much tape here now, so what I'm going to do is rip off the excess and flatten it. And if you don't want to be wasteful, you can go ahead and just start with the tail and lay that down. And since this isn't as wide as this, you can take another piece and add to it until it's the correct thickness that you want. Which actually did not really require much. And yeah, I'm really glad I refilmed this. It was way complicated the way I originally explained it, but here is how you lay down nice flat tape. Of course, you'll see in a moment the dowel is not going to be flat in one portion because the quills of the feather will be there. So like this area will be slightly thicker than this area. So you would just lay down less tape where it is thicker and more tape where it's thinner, where it's just the dowel. Alright, so as you can see, because of the quills, this is much thicker than it is right here. So I ripped off the tape and I'm going to start laying down new tape. So I'm sure this is usually how videos go. I do want to note that I may have made that look a little easier than what it was and how it might be for you. But just know all you got to do is just keep fiddling with it, keep holding these in place, keep moving, keep adjusting, and you will eventually have the feathers placed how you want them. They'll be stuck onto this dowel. They're glued, they're taped, and now it's time to apply the leather piece to the dowel. Ta-da! Now, doing thread work directly over this while having to hold the leather in place does not sound like any fun, so I actually have a glover needle with some sinew. This is where this comes into play. You can also use just regular thread if you don't want to use sinew or if you don't have any sinew, but I'm just going to make a quick tack into each side of the ends of the leather here to hold them in place. Then I'm stitching both the front and back layers of the leather using a baseball stitch style, which basically means you're driving the needle from the bottom of the leather to the front, and I do that on both front and back twice. Alright, I really hope you're able to see this, but each side is baseball stitched together, 2 stitches on each ends of the leather. And then I'm just sort of fiddling with the leather, making sure that the flat portions of it are on the top and on the bottom of the plume assortment. We don't want them to be sort of off to the side in any kind of way. Now, these stitches are held pretty tight, but I want a little extra insurance since we don't want our feathers to ever fall out of this. There could be a possibility that this leather would slip off. So I'm actually going to try and drive this needle through the feather assortment and the tape, not necessarily through the quills. And certainly not through the dowel, of course. You just kind of have to go on either side of it. But now this has been stitched on either side, connecting the edges of the leather. And I've also did 2 stitches completely through the entire tape and feather assembly twice in order to really tack this leather to the feathers. I'm just going to quickly tie this sinew off. And now I'm going to throw a couple more stitches into the bottom, right where the end of my thumbnail is. So just kind of run my finger along the dowel, making sure everything is a little straight, like the flat of the leather is with the top and the bottom. And then right where the dowel ends, I'm going to throw in a couple stitches. This part will be visible. You're not going to cover this with any thread. So after tacking the leather, I need to tie off where the knot won't be seen. So I'm just driving the needle through just one layer, and then I'm finding the thread that is between the 2 layers and tying a knot on that thread. I realize you can't see that because when I filmed this, I didn't realize I was totally doing it not in frame of the camera. I guess you can see a little bit there of me grabbing the thread to tie a knot with. But yeah, after tying a knot between the 2 layers of leather, then I'm just trying to drive my needle through a layer of leather so that the tail of the sinew, after tying the knot and cutting a short tail, it'll be going through the leather instead of just hanging loose.
And this is my finished product. You can baseball stitch down each side of the leather if you want. I do leave mine just open like this, but if you're wanting the leather to wrap all the way around, you could cut your leather a little bit wider and then baseball stitch all the way down.
Alright, welcome to the threadwork portion of this video. I'm going to actually put this to the side and use this one to show you real quickly how to do it. I think it'll be easier for you to see. So first thing, leather is a good base for threadwork because of basically how squishy it is, I guess. It's really easy to make your thread work even if you're using leather, but you don't always need to do thread work over top of leather. That's how I did my plume drop down, but for my feather fan I actually just did my thread work over top of the masking tape directly. Either or works really. Just some things that you can note to help you determine which method you would like to choose is how thick of the thread you're using. The thicker the thread, the easier it is to mask any unevenness or inconsistency than it is with thinner thread. You will be able to see inconsistency and unevenness if you use thinner thread. But also how able you are to get a nice flat base with just masking tape. Do you need to use leather if you're unable to get a nice flat base, or do you find it easier to get the masking tape flat than you do the leather? Whichever is easiest for you. But we're gonna dig out a little bit of our glue and we're just gonna keep it out and lay a little bit down at a time. Don't completely coat this. See how I just laid a little section down and only on one side of the dowel. I didn't completely coat the entire side. This is just going to help our thread really stay in place and not move around as you touch it. Now to start a line of thread, it's actually pretty easy. We're not going to tie any knots. We're not going to lay any more glue down. You just leave a tail and then you're going to cover that tail as you wrap the thread around. It's kind of hard to get started, but once you get started then it's really easy. But I'm just going to hold this tail and then I need my thread on this side, and then I'm going to wrap around. Seeing how the very top of it, the top of the tail, I mean, maybe using your nail or the edge of your finger to hold it in place helps. But you want the top of the thread work to join with the top of the tail. Kind of overlap and have the thread work that you're holding onto, or the thread you're holding onto, sort of land underneath the thread you just laid down. And then lay it down under that and lay it down under that. And you'll just continue this for however long you want this line to be. Well, I'd say until you get close to the end of however long you want this to be. Because to switch colors, you're going to need to lay down another tail. So now this thread is laying on some of this glue. It's covering the tail. But I want to switch colors now. And starting the next color is a little easier because now I can lay the tail of the next color underneath the one that I'm currently weaving. So I have the tail of this green right here, and I'm going to continue wrapping this red around so that it's covering the green tail. And quick tip, you can just roll, and that makes this process a lot faster. You just have to deal with unraveling this, I guess. Now, the green thread is being covered by the red Threadwork, but I want to switch to green. So what I need to do now is, instead of the red thread rolling around and covering the green tail, we're going to start rolling the green around and cover a bit of this red. So holding the red in place, make things easier to kind of move the project around however you find it easy to hold on to things, and then start wrapping the green. See how it goes over the tail? Then once you have enough of the next color wrapped on there and you know that the previous color is not going anywhere, it's held down nice and well, then you can go ahead and trim that off, leaving just a little bit of a tail, and continue to wrap the next color. So depending on how many colors you're doing in your thread work, you would just repeat that process over and over. If you are starting a new color, then you would want to begin wrapping, you would want to begin its tail before you finish a section so that you can wrap over it, and then leave the tail of the old color and wrap over that one with the new one. Now for finishing off the thread work. So a few different ways you can do this, just depending on the thickness of your thread. For this one, because the thread is very small, it's sewing thread, I basically tied a knot and then used a needle to sew more knots into the leather that the thread work is over, just to really ensure that this thread isn't going anywhere and that it's nice and finished off. For thick thread, you can't really do that. I can't fit this in a needle and sew it into that leather. But you can cut off the excess. I would leave a nice long tail just to give yourself enough to work with. And then you need to tie a knot around the dowel. So I'm bringing it around the dowel, and then feeding the tail through this hole. Depending on if your project has like a top or a bottom, I would suggest making this knot wherever it's the least visible. And then I'm going to use some glue to finish it off. So I guess I would suggest super glue over tacky glue for this, but tacky glue works. Putting a little bit of glue over the knot that I just formed, just to really solidify that knot, keep it from coming undone. But I'm also going to put a little bit of glue in the path of this tail, if I lay it down flat, in the path of it. And then I'm going to cut it down 2 sides. And I'm going to lay it on top of that glue path I just made. You're going to get some glue on your fingers. Pressing it flat onto the thread work. And that's how you do thread work. So I am going to repeat this process on this, and I'll catch up with you in a minute. Alright, hello from the future. So I have waited maybe about an hour or so after finishing the thread work just so I could show you what this looks like with the glue dried. I did use tacky glue. I think for the end I would suggest super glue over tacky glue now that I've thought about it a little more. And part of that is also because the tacky glue has kind of altered the color of the thread a little bit. Albeit this is hemp embroidery thread, that could be part of it, but just keep that in mind that it could make the color of your thread a little darker, and to not put as much glue on there as I did. Maybe just use super glue. With that being said, I also forgot to even lay down the little strips of glue like I had said to do, and that resulted in the beginning of my thread work kind of coming undone a little bit. So here's an example of why you need to do that. We'll just go ahead and cover that up with the fluffiness, but here it is. Here's the side drop, 4 feathers on there, thread work. The last step is to attach it to a barrette, which is actually hella easy. For mine, I have one of these kind of barrettes. All I do is I insert the loop on there, and I clip it on top of my head. I actually have like some beadwork that I put over top of this barrette so you can't see the barrette. So if you don't like these kind of barrettes, or you don't have a way to cover it, I guess, and you want something a little smaller, these kind of barrettes do work as well. You would just loop the leather around the small metal portion and then insert it on your hair, and there it is. Alright, so there's the side drop and the thread work. I hope this video was helpful for you. I know that I said in the beginning of the video, I'm not an expert in this. I've been asked over and over again to do a tutorial, and this is the best I can do, is just to show you how I did it. There could be better ways for every step, I just don't know them. But if you do, leave them in the comments, and other people will find them helpful, including myself. But until next time, I'll see you in the next one. Bama Pigwabman.